20 people have been confirmed killed when a three-story building collapsed on Lagos Island on Wednesday. Already, the state government has commenced the demolition of 180 defective buildings that failed an integrity test. What does this mean for the people of the state who bears the brunt in this case? Is the action of the government well thought out, or is it driven by sentiments? Data feeds are coming through in one place simultaneously on all our social media platforms, channelstv.com, and on youtube.com/channelsweb. You can follow us right now on m.channelstv.com for a live stream. Be part of the show. Tweet at Gimbo or CTV and use the hashtag State of the Nation. Let's get your thoughts in. The Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, has challenged members of the 9th Senate to deploy every legislative instrument to urgently start and conclude work on the electoral framework in good time ahead of the 2023 general elections. The INEC boss was speaking in Abuja when he gave 100 members of the Senate their certificate of return. What does this mean to the 9th Senate? What differently will they do this time around? In the meantime, Lagos State Command is also brewing into the process and trying to see what contributions it can make to assist the lawmakers in their pursuits to mend and provide guidelines to ensure that the processes of electioneering are still in one place. It's prime time here in Lagos, and this is State of the Nation. Welcome everyone to Nigeria and the rest of the world. I'm Gimbo Umar, and this is State of the Nation. The recent collapse of a three-story building at the Itafaji area in Lagos Island on Wednesday, which killed over 20 persons, including school pupils, has raised concerns about the plan for a megacity and the need for urban renewal. The Lagos State Building Control Agency on Friday morning began the demolition of all buildings marked as defective within Lagos Island. Let's get a better analysis on this now. I'm being joined by Linus Atiobo. He's a Public Relations Officer of the Nigerian Institute of Building, Lagos chapter. I want to thank you so much indeed for coming on the show at this time.
Thank you, Mark.
What's your reaction to the government's actions, which started earlier today, demolishing, beginning with 20, but has earmarked about 180 buildings to be demolished?
Well, it's good. However, it's coming late. It means that they should have done this much more earlier, but it's a welcome development that they're doing this now.
Now, they're doing it now. Is this an offshoot, or is this reactionary, considering that we know that this is not the first time that buildings have collapsed within that very area, and the government has actually done some assessment tests and evaluated some of the buildings with a view to, demolishing them, bringing them down. So we've had this situation now where school pupils are involved. Is that the trigger that has now forced the government to act accordingly? Or is this just mere sentiments that's playing into a situation?
Well, it will be difficult to go into the mind of the government or the government of the day to find out what exactly is prompting this. But what I would say is you can't deceive yourself. Government itself has planned for practically every aspect of Lagos. But the important part of it is, are they willing enough in terms of considering the political climate, the political interpretation or connotation to such an effect? Are they willing enough to take on that responsibility? That's what you probably will be asking whichever government that is representing at that material time. But, well, all fair and good. Even if that is prompting them, then it's good that it's prompting them. But it would have been done much more earlier. That's what I practically believe.
You're a structural engineer, and you understand this, how all of this comes together. When you look at the Lagos Island, and people are asking the question that what's the soil integrity test itself, such that it has the capacity to retain high-rise buildings. If we're really looking towards an urban renewal, then one should expect that not just little, or should I say, bungalows should be built in this instance, but sky-rise buildings. Does that sand, does that soil, does it have the capacity to retain, or should I, to withstand sky-rise, high-rise buildings?
Well, first is first, I'm a registered builder. I'm not a structural engineer, but we all work within the same
my
circle.
apologies.
No problem. But however, the soil test or the capacity of the soil, it is not what should be the question, because what you do with soil is to investigate what is the soil bearing capacity of this environment, and that will tell you this is the strength of the soil, or these are the structures or layers of the strength of the soil. So you can now predict or determine what type of building you want to put on it. Rather, what is important is most of the time you realize that development precedes government planning. So probably these guys are already there before the government now thought of it like, oh, this is a developing area, let's come up with fantastic ideas. And what you end up having is areas that people that are probably designed or developed or built with respect to residential nature in mind, government comes, put up a good infrastructure in terms of road, network, and voila, they think about it, wow, I can convert this place into a residential, commercial service. Offices can be put in place, printing press can be put in place. It now means that what has been designed initially or built initially to be a residential property is now functioning as a commercial venture, which has a totally different factor of safety. Because the factor of safety for a residential property is between 1.5 to 2 kilonewton per millimeter square. But for a commercial venture, it is between 5 kilonewton per millimeter square. So it is extremely different purpose, different use, and of course, this is what you get at the end of the day.
So what went wrong for this three-story building such that it collapsed? Did they miss the foundation? What was the problem?
Well, why actually I'm taking my time to respond is most of the time people feel when there's a collapse it's because of this, it's because of that. But when you take your time to actually do a cross-section investigation, you realize that so many things can cause collapse or collapses of building. However, looking at that structure from reports and from news feeders, it says that the structure is about 25 years old. Yeah, the average lifespan of a building should be at least 50 years. But of course, we know that with respect to material usage, with respect to the desires of probably the person that was building at that time, can also alter what the outcome of such structures will be. So looking at it just from a face value, you could say probably the developer or the whoever has taken up the construction has not done the right thing, or probably because of an additional flaw on it, just like the case of the Synagogue Church of Our Nation, where you have approvals for 4 or 5 floors and you are now on your own, including another extra floor, which would probably would have been considered in the design stage.
How much of an engagement have you had, has your guild had with the government with respect to this urban renewal initiative that you're pushing forward?
Okay, this is it. Let's agree, and which we know, that development precedes planning. Now that we find ourselves in this quagmire, it's enough for the government of the day to look at it and say, okay, what do we do with respect to this quagmire we find ourselves, where buildings are built side by side? And with respect of the, I think you're talking about the Building Collapse Prevention Guild. It's more of a whistleblower NGO. Probably what they do is notify the government, we've noticed this, we've noticed that, I think you should do X, Y, Z, but it's dependent on the government of the day to now take that ultimate decision and say, yes, I'm willing and ready to go on with this. So
it's a political will?
That's basically it. It's a political will. Because let's not deceive ourselves. You have an area so populated. You come before an election period or during the election period and you're saying, come off it, guys, I'm clearing up this area because it's not safe, it is not good. You're practically playing with your political future. You're playing with your party's ability to win an election. So all of those things would be put in place by such political parties or such players that are feeling all should be about politics. But we're talking of human life here. Those things should not be on the table at no point in time.
How will the outlook of Itafaji look if, at the point when the government perhaps is done? We saw what happened with Makoko.
Yeah.
It's now Itafaji that's going to be facing something similar. But having, you understand the building terms, and having looked at what is possible, what would you say will be the resultant of the actions of government at the end of the day? Looking at people like you, the builders, looking at the Building Collapse Prevention Guild, also as a body who claims to have as many as being staffed across every state of the Federation, and even the Architectural Guild as well. How do you see this all coming together such that this urban renewal doesn't start and then stops midway?
Oh, okay. When we look at it, or everybody tries to look at it from an holistic perspective without just being traditional about the solution, being traditional about the solution is what government practically is doing right now. Go into the place, demolish the building, send the occupants out of the place. The owners of the lands are losing their value, their properties. That's just a traditional approach. But if you look at it from a systemic approach and say, okay, what is the general overview of what we're trying to do? You bring in investors and say, okay, guys, this is a vast area of land. What are we going to do with it? And they come up with fantastic designs of this is how the area should look like. And you negotiate with the landowners. Let your value of your land be your stake in the business. And once we do this, this is your return on investment. They will willingly yield into such an understanding, but not this fire brigade approach that you're coming in or trying to put into place. So it solves the problem of degradation. It solves the problem of people not having accommodation or place to stay, because the people you're trying to demolish and send them away from the building, yes, you're trying to save them, but is there an alternative plan for them to actually find a place to stay? What are you trying to, how are they going to take care of the children?
What's the role of mortgage in this?
Of course, we all know that the mortgage institutions in Nigeria are not really doing or coming up to bid with their expectations. When you're having mortgage systems that can't support the ability to repay. So so basically that's what I'm thinking. You look at the entire architecture and say the mortgage institutions come into play, the investors come into play, the landowners come into play, professionals come into play, and we government will create an enabling environment. Let us come with a better system. Because what we're saying right now, in the side of Lekki and Ibeju and all of those sides, developments are already going on. What is the government also doing with such areas? Will it get to the point where you now have an Itafaji building up in such a place before you now say, oh, as government, we now want to do road, want to put up infrastructure? So it is right now, and using this platform, and this is already an opportunity for government to rewrite its wrong. This is an opportunity because I know during the time of Fashola, he came up with a Lagos State Master Plan. So it's not like the government lack wisdom or ability to come up with ideas, but it is just that ability to push it to the end. That's just what is important.
So we're also looking at the possibility of affordability, even for an urban renewed area, such that it may be a little lower than what we have as Eco-Atlantic. A lot of people have been complaining about that and the affordability, but at the end of the day, how would it look like for you? Well,
affordability is relative, but the reality is that Lagos Island is a prime location, so we must appreciate it for what it is. If they lose the properties or they lose their building, of course, government must give them a reassurance that even if it will be a relocation to a better developed area for them, so be it. And you can now plan that place to be what it's supposed to be. So we shouldn't think that when you put down such structures, it will be affordable. It will not, because there are businesses there. The environment is built for businesses, not less of residential. So you have to now design something that covers practically everybody, come up with building systems and model that can make it affordable. In that sense, then everybody is a win-win arrangement.
That's a good place to let it rest. I must thank you so much indeed. Linus Etebo is the Public Relations Officer of the Nigerian Institute of Building, Lagos chapter. Many thanks indeed for talking to us. We'll take a short break now. When we return, the task ahead of the 9th Assembly. Stay with us.